Hi friends, this is Jyotsna from konlines.com. In this session, I would like to discuss about the topic Infosets. Okay, now before discussing about the Infosets, let me discuss about the info provider. Even this is like one info provider. We are having two types of info providers. One is physical data store, means two types of data storages in the physical info providers. Now one type of data store, we are having two types of data stores in info provider. One of the method is physical data store info provider. It is like the examples are like basic info provider, basic info cube, and basic info cube DSOs, and like info objects, like characteristics info objects, characteristics master data info objects. And the second type is logical data store object, means it won't contains data in it. It will fetch the data from the other sources like virtual cubes or remote cubes. And the second one is infosets, and so multi-provider, like that. These are virtually means it won't store the data in them, but it will get the data from the other info providers or data targets. And my Infoset is the second type, that is, it is a logically stored data store object. Okay, data store info provider. Infoset is a special kind of info provider. Let me show the diagram also. See here, just I'm giving the example for which contains data and which do not contains data. Don't take this one multi-provider. Like which info providers that contains data are like info cubes, info objects, DSOs, and hybrid providers, and the semantic partition objects, and do not contain data, virtual info provider, aggregator level info sets. And even multi-provider won't have data, it is logically fetch the data, okay, from different info providers. Even my info set does not contain any data. Okay, and it is a special kind of info provider which does not store the data in it, means it does not store the data physically, it stores the data logically. Okay, it will store the data logically in it, and in other words does not store the data physically. In other words, infosets are info providers that logically join the data and provide this data for BI queries and for reports. Infoset collects the data from the tables of info providers used, collects the data, used to build it, means it will fetches the data, collects the data from different tables. Infoset describes data sources that are defined as rule of joins on DSOs or standard info cubes and info objects, that is characteristic with master data. Now I got a term called join. Okay, I'll discuss in detail later types of joins, but let me explain about the join. What is join? The Infoset will based on the join operation. What is join? A time-dependent join or temporal join is a join that contains an info objects that is time-dependent characteristics. Infosets are two-dimensional query that we build upon ODS or info cubes. And we will discuss the types at last, and let me explain about the do's and don'ts for Infoset. Okay, do not use more than 10 info providers in one info set. It is better to create multiple info sets depending on the report needs. Do not use more than 10 joins in one info set, especially if you expect a high data volume. We can use one more like that. Some extent we can extend the join. Do not use the calculation before aggregations on Infoset because this may lead to wrong query result. If there are Infoset with time dependent master data, do not restrict the data by field like valid like from that is valid from to valid to that is valid from means zero date from to and valid date that is valid to zero date to. Okay, these are the do's and don'ts, and coming to the data model using Infoset. Infosets are info providers that are logically joined data and provides this data for reporting of a BI queries. Infoset only refers basic info providers like info cubes, data store objects, DSOs, master data info objects, but they contains no data. Okay, it will fetches the data from them. All the BEX and the OLAP services are available like authorization, text, variables, hierarchies, calculator key figures, except navigational attributes of Infoset characteristics. And when to use the Infoset? When it will be useful? Like if you to join the required data from basic info providers and to evaluate the time dependencies and to create the self join and the left outer join, and this allows building a relational BI data model with unified views for reporting, like several info providers but only one view. Therefore, we recommend keeping data in smaller size using info providers like basic info providers that can be flexibility. So join for reporting purpose. Now let me go for the types of joins. Okay, inner join, left outer join, temporal join, and the fourth one is self join. Inner join is like a record can only be in the selected result. Select if there are entities in both the tables, means both join tables. Left outer join is like if there is no corresponding records in the right table, the record is part of the result, means field belongs to the right side table, have initial columns. Temporal join is like a join is called temporal if it has the at least one member is time dependent, like zero cal day, zero cal month, and like that. Time dependent. Zero date from valid date, zero valid to, that is to date from to date to. Self join is the same object is joined together. Now let me show this bit detailed. See here, this is my case. Info provider will be DS4 or cube. Info provider 2, this is DS4 or cube. Okay, means both the info providers might be DS4s or cubes, like that. And I'm having two tables with me. This is my first table. See here, the table with 3. I'm having the first table. See here, I'm having this info provider 101, ABC 500, 102, MNO 600, 103, XYZ 700. This is my first one. And this is the info provider 2. That might be the DS for the cube data. 101, ABC 200, 101, MNO 300. Means this is the value C1, consider that C1. And this is the name and this is some amount. Okay, if I'm using the inner join, means it will only common key records will be summed up. See here, 101, 101. I'm having two 101s, means common keys are there for info provider 1 and info provider 2. What are the common keys in info provider 1 and info provider 2? 101 and 102. It will be summed up. So what is here, this is not common one, means this won't be added in the inner join. Only common fields will be added. So 101, the common field is ABC, and here it is 500 plus 200, it is 700. Summed up. 102, the 102 value, MNO is the common one. 600 plus 300, it is 900. Coming to the left outer join, output, even records without common key will be in the output. Not only the common keys, even the uncommon value also will be displayed. These are the common values and uncommon value is this one. Okay, like this, these are the types of the joins. Okay, now sometimes we come across the scenarios where we have to build a report on two or more different data target. In this case, we can use the infosets which join two or more data targets, and we can build the query on the infosets which gets data from tables of info providers, might be the cubes or DSOs, use it to build it. Now in my further navigation, I'll explain about that. Create the infosets on two info cubes. Okay, we'll discuss the navigation in the next class. This is all about the infoset. Thanks for watching this video.